Hey, welcome back. Another episode of the NewOrleans.Football podcast. We have a great show for you guys today. Saints legend, color analyst, former running back Deuce McAllister joins us to kind of break down everything he's seeing with the offense today. And me and Mike will talk about Jameis Winston, the upcoming game, and some of the stuff we saw doing the film review of the last loss against the Carolina Panthers. As always, we're presented by Dat Wrap Company, and we aren't in the Better Call Botto podcast studio, but maybe we're in the mobile Better Call Botto podcast studio.
Botto, Buckingham Palace.
Yeah, it's a good location. They got another location now. So if you need your car wrapped, call Dat Wrap Company. They can help grow your business with the most cost-effective form of advertising. They specialize in graphic design, custom and commercial vehicle wraps, wall murals, and storefront signage. Whether you're wanting to give your car a fresh new look or you want to transform the face of your business, DWC can help get you noticed. Check them out on Instagram, same name, or call them today, 985-237-4781. And if you need legal help with any of the following: car wrecks, offshore injuries, 18-wheeler collisions, Maritime Jones Act, hurricane or storm claims, you better call Botto at 504-323-4777 or 985-677-1085 for your free consultation and case review, BottoLaw.com. And check out our friends, Firehouse Subs, Veterans Boulevard location. Great people, great food. When you spend in the community, there's a good chance they're doing something to help the community when you buy food there. So check them out. Another episode of the podcast. Let's go.
Put your hands in the air, cause it's on right now. Yeah, we back up in this thing and we coming for the crown. They tripping Kev on the mic.
It's about to go down.
We in the dome right now, we in the zone right now. Put your hands in the air, cause it's on right now. Yeah, we back up in this thing and we coming for the crown. They tripping Kev on the mic.
It's about to go down.
As you can tell, last year it was an off year. But we reloaded and now it is our boss year. A Devo back there and yeah, we got the badger. Don't forget my shun and don't forget the pass rush. Jameis QB1 dropping down to MT. Handed off the Alvin with the quick feet. So when you see the Saints marching, yeah, we gon' trouble you at the Super Bowl party eating on them double.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back. Another episode of the NewOrleans.Football podcast. We're recording this out front of the Saints practice where they're practicing this week in London. And you starting to feel acclimated? You feel like you're settling in? You're in the flow? You sleeping? You eating?
That's the key word of the week, acclimated, right? We joke about it, though. I mean, first of all, yes. You know, this is like day 3 for us, maybe day 4. I don't have any actual idea, but I know day 1 I was doing a lot of sleeping, and sounds like the Saints players were too. And I can't believe that some teams don't spend the whole week here. Most teams don't. Most teams come in on Friday. The Vikings are coming in on Friday. I think it gives the Saints an actual advantage. I don't think it's just one of those talking points while you're in London. Oh, you know, are you getting used to the time zone change? What about the weather change? Like, I think those are serious things that they have to get used to, and there's a big reason why the Saints pay extra money to come here for the whole week and do this thing right. There's a reason why they're 2-0 in London. I think that has a lot to do with it. I think that is no small thing to talk about, that they're the team. You know, it does take 2 or 3 days till you feel like you're on the sleep cycle, till you're on the schedule. If you come in on Friday, day 3 is game day.
Yep. Yeah, look, I'm struggling. I got like 3 hours of sleep last night. I don't know when to eat. Deuce, he was telling us he's struggling. He's not eating. He's not sleeping. So people like you are lucky. They're settling in. But if I were playing for the Saints, Deuce were playing for the Saints, they'd be getting ready to play a game on a really messed up sleep schedule, not eating, not feeling right. That doesn't sound like the recipe for peak performance. So, you know, all this stuff is done by sleep doctors. The Saints have their doctors saying their things. The Vikings have their doctors saying their things. I don't understand that side of it. I understand this side of it. Having done this twice now, it took me until the end of the week to kind of get my rhythm. So it just gives you that runway for all 53 guys to potentially be feeling their best, feeling normal, waking up at the right time, practicing at the right time, getting their circadian rhythm where it needs to be to go out there and succeed. Yeah, that's a big word.
It just took you 3 days. We don't have to wait till Sunday for your – all right, but look, let's talk about somebody who his circadian rhythms they have to get right, and that's Jameis Winston. I mean, we came out here, the first practice Wednesday, no sign of him. And he said that that was against his wishes. He wanted to be out there practicing, but – if that doesn't seem like a setback to you, it definitely seems like the Saints are questioning how they're treating this back injury, and do they need to give him more rest? I think it's still an open question if he's the one starting this game. I don't think they should bench him based solely on performance. There's too many other problems with the offense right now to say he's the problem. But health is a big question, and I think it's one they're wrestling with right now.
Yeah, look, I'm not buying it totally that he's playing on Sunday. They kind of said that it was likely. I'm not there, though. The fact that Taysom Hill was out here practicing a quarterback for the first time
As
the
a
whole
backup.
year.
Andy Dalton taking
Yeah,
the first team.
as first time the whole year.
Yeah.
That tells me that you're worried about your depth at quarterback. And in case of an emergency, you're doing something and you need him available in that room, used to throwing passes, because if Dalton has to start and he gets hurt, what do you do next? You go to Taysom. So they're preparing for that contingency. That's different than last week. Last week on Wednesday when Jameis wasn't at practice, he was at practice. He just wasn't practicing. This week, he's not there at all. He's invisible. He's not doing anything. It seems real. It seems to me that it's very possible. It's within the spectrum of possibilities this week that they're going to shut him down and tell him, hey, you got to take a step back. They already did it during Wednesday's practice. If his back doesn't respond by tomorrow, by Thursday, what do you do? I mean, so you have to be ready for this
This is a health
outcome.
decision to me.
Yes.
Like, we talked about this in depth on Sunday night after the game. We talked about this with Deuce, too. It's not time to bench Jameis just on performance. There's too many things going wrong with this offense. When he does put good drives together, there's penalties and there's fumbles that are killing it for him to say that's what we need to change. But they do need to, he can't be a liability. First of all, it's a big thing that we've sort of realized with your film study as we're talking with Deuce. It kind of dawned on me, one of the secrets to Jameis' success last year was his third read was to take off and run. He was a very effective runner last year. So, we could argue all day about what his first read should be. Should he be throwing more slants? Should he be thrown to the running back more? But when he wasn't seeing the picture he wanted to see downfield, he would take off running and be very effective doing it. This year, that's been eliminated. It's turned the zero blitz into a real problem for this team when the defenses now know, well, that guy can't escape the pocket. And a couple of his sacks have been after he escapes the pocket and then almost just bails on the play and says, well, I'm not going to run for the first down at this point, so I'm going to kind of just take the sack. And we don't think, Jameis is a running quarterback. There's a big element of his game last year, and it's noticeable that that's been taken away.
Yeah, look, Jameis 101, the Twitter account, he loves to share a stat about his yards per scramble last year. And you can roll your eyes at that or whatever, and I've seen people do it, but it was a real thing, and it was a real weapon for him. And on a lot of third downs, he extended drives. He would get everybody in coverage. They're looking for the deep ball. There's a running lane. He'd take it and go, and it was, as you said, massive part of his game. And you mentioned the cover zero blitzes. You got to be able to drift out. That's it. Like on the one where he got sacked last week, you drift out to the left, you throw the pass over the middle. He's just kind of stationary in the pocket, and I don't believe it's because he doesn't see the guy running directly at him. Like, he saw that guy. He just couldn't do anything, so he tried to stand in there and get a pass out because he couldn't move. And if you can't do those things, who's watching these games? The Vikings are watching these games. They're coming too. They aren't a huge blitzing team, but they're going to bring it too, and they're going to try to get after him, and they're going to do the same exact things, just like last year when the Panthers also exposed another flaw in their pass protection scheme with the double-A blitz. Next week, first play, they're coming at him the same way. So they're going to keep trying Jameis like that, and if he can't protect himself, he's not going to play. And I'm telling you, him not practicing, them telling him he had to shut it down, this is different. This is completely different. The vibe of this is not the same as last week.
I disagree, though, with the notion that I'm seeing a lot on Twitter that Andy Dalton would provide a spark. I think Jameis is the definition of a spark. I mean, we see it in the fourth quarter of every game when it's too late. But I do think what this offense needs is they need to find rhythm. And the question is whether it's Jameis or whether it's – we don't know what an Andy Dalton offense would look like. But they need to go back to what has always worked for this offense, which is Pete Carmichael – used to be Sean Payton. They know how to draw up a rhythm. And whichever quarterback we see on the field, that's what we need to see from this offense because they need to be able to go on 10 and 12-play scoring drives. And, I don't know why sometimes it's a penalty, sometimes it's a fumble, sometimes it's a sack. Everything that can go wrong with this offense is going wrong. But more than anything, it's going to be hard if Michael Thomas doesn't play an injury we haven't talked about at all. If Jarvis Landry, he's questionable with an injury. They have to find that rhythm. That is absolutely no matter what. Not a spark, not a, who can come in and throw us a one-play touchdown pass. They need to figure out how do we get those rhythm drives again because it's been missing all year.
You know what? They've done it, though, early in the game. First drive, every time it's scripted, Jameis goes out there, he gets them in the rhythm, and it's because a lot of that stuff's predetermined where to go with the ball, and you're thinking about it all week, and you have the plan going in, and there isn't going to be as much thinking when you hit the field. It's when they get later into the games and things become a little bit less defined and there's more variables that things have kind of fallen apart. So it would be interesting to kind of see if Dalton changes that at all, if they have the same issues going on. You know, theoretically, when you think about a guy playing like we did with Jameis all offseason, you think about it in the perfect prism of everything working the right way. So it's easy to look at Dalton and see 10 for 10 in the preseason, the way he moved them down the field.
He feels
against,
like a safe option, but you don't know. I mean, there's a reason he's on his 4th team in 4 years.
Yeah, and
I mean, he's not perfect. But
and there's a reason that Jameis Winston was named the starter over him and that Jameis Winston got paid more money. So we'll see. I mean, I think it's definitely possible, though, that he does a better job of getting the ball to these guys in space, allowing them to catch the ball and run and just kind of taking the easy money there. And okay, here's Mike, here's Jarvis, here's Alvin in the flat, and just kind of go down the field like that. Whereas with Jameis, he just views the game differently, and he should. I'm not faulting him for wanting to look down the field, for holding the ball and trying to hit Jarvis in the corner of the end zone instead of hitting Alvin over the middle, because he can do that, and if the read's there, he should take it. But Dalton's kind of someone who's probably a little bit more physically limited than Jameis. I mean, we know that. So he's going to be more apt to give up on a play sooner, to hit the check down. And I think this team just has check down weapons everywhere. They have the best check down options in the NFL.
I think check down's a misnomer. The thing we saw with Drew Brees for years was he just said he checked down before the ball was snapped. He was like, oh, they're going to give me this 7-yard pass. I'm going to take the 7-yard pass. Like Chris Olave might run 40 yards down the field and be wide open. I'm never going to look at it because I know the 7-yard pass is there. I'm going to take the 7 yards. That's something that we haven't seen Jameis Winston do yet.
And look, maybe that's what they need. We'll potentially, possibly find out at some point. If not, Jameis will be back out there. Anyways, we're going to play our interview now with Deuce McAllister. He talked to us yesterday from the hotel. And as always, our guests are brought to you by Desi Vega's Steakhouse on St. Charles Avenue. Check them out. Best steaks in the city. And we're joined now by our special guest, Deuce McAllister. Deuce, you had a tweet this week that really kind of caught my interest, and that prompted the invite here, just about how the offense still works and that it's not a scheme issue or anything like that, and you still think it's effective. What are you seeing so far to make you believe that?
Well, it's an execution issue. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing when you look at some of the success and the lack of success that they've had. And it's just going to come down to players making plays. And it's not necessarily all of the young guys that are messing up. And, you know, it's guys that have been in that system. And, you know, it's just them being accountable, really what it's going to come down to. I mean, because teams are saying, we're not going to give up the explosive play to you. So you've got to put together the 8, the 9, the 10, the 12 play drives. And they've done it. They just hadn't scored. And I think that's probably the most frustrating part. And now, you know, offensively, there's still some head scratchers, some of the play calling that they will make. But from an overall system, that hadn't been the issue.
And do you feel like Pete Carmichael's making most of the time the right calls at the right time? You see guys getting open and everything like that. There's been some finger pointing toward maybe, oh, well, Sean's gone, so now it's because of this. It seems like that isn't kind of what you're seeing. So
no, that's not totally the case. I mean, you can always scheme open a guy, a player, if you need to in a sense, but also a lot of that is going to also fall back on the quarterback. And so having the ability to be able to check out a line, having the ability to be able to go to something that you see, that you feel that will work, that's still in the system, you know, but also being able to pick up blitzes, being able to pick up things that you're seeing or defenses, what they're doing to you, they're not able to do some of that yet. So from an overall system, it's not completely done. And so that's really why it's a work in progress. And, you know, we were spoiled for so long as well. I mean, with Drew and Sean being in that system, I mean, we saw and we knew how it would work, how it should work. And it's just going to take some time for this group to be able to get to that level. But, I mean, it's still probably frustrating because there's been opportunities and you just hadn't cashed in.
I know from talking to you, the execution problems you're seeing, that doesn't mean a Jameis execution problem. It's, like you said, even guys who've been here a long time, everybody's hands are dirty in this. But Jameis specifically, like, I think one of the ways we assumed Pete would coach his way out of this. We said it at halftime of the first game was, now they're going to just start taking some of those freebies. 5-yard pass, 7-yard pass, throw to Alvin, throw to Mike, throw to Alvin, throw to Jarvis. And is that the hardest part to marry with Jameis Winston? Because that's never been a big part of his game. It feels like the personnel that they have, throwing to the running back, throwing slants, it seems almost like, does he need to learn to do that, or do they need to, like, find different ways to get rhythm?
It will always be the quarterback's call where the football goes. I mean, that's just a system. Now, you can specifically tag a play for a player specifically, and that football, unless they are triple teaming that player, should not go to him. But outside of that, it's always going to be the quarterback's decision where the football goes. And, it's really going to be dependent on what the defense is giving you as well. And so right now teams are saying, hey, look, if we're not playing cover zero or, we're sending an extra guy, then you're getting zone blitz. And so from that standpoint, I've got to be able to process it and see it. And then it's not just Jameis. It has to be the receivers as well. They've got to see it as well. And so I think that goes back to Nick's point where you talk about separation, creating separation or sitting in a zone. That's all something that they're all kind of getting used to together. And so that's going to take time. That doesn't happen overnight. We saw so many times Drew be able to just throw the slant to Mike, whether it was first window slant, second window slant, and we hadn't seen that as much. That's still in the system. I mean, that doesn't go anywhere. And, teams are playing to, hey, look, we'll take this away. What are you going to now? And we hadn't seen what they wanted to go to now enough.
Yeah. Well, to your point, that was the opening drive of this game. He hit Mike twice. He hit a slant to Mike. He hit Mike for another one. Second drive of the game, he hit Mike on third down again. I thought that's what we were going to see, and then we just never saw it again for the rest of the game.
Well, and part of it, you had a false start.
Yep.
Then you had a chop block, and now you never get back in the rhythm offensively. And I think, just knowing what they wanted to do from an offensive standpoint, when you go against a smaller defensive line and a smaller linebacking core, they wanted to run the ball. They wanted to run the ball. You fall behind. Now that's almost out of the game plan of what you wanted to do.
Let me ask you this, because this is kind of everybody's putting the quarterback under a microscope, so nobody's talking about it. The run game was really ineffective in that game, which kind of surprised me. It was even effective against Tampa Bay in spurts. Why has that suddenly become part of the problem too?
Well, I think it's really, when you talk about it, you're still probably averaging over 4 yards per carry. And, I mean, you can take out the Taysom runs that he had in the first week as far as against Atlanta, which is valid. I understand that. But I think you had over 100 yards in 3 quarters against Tampa Bay. And that was a game where you were going to have to be hard-headed as far as the runs were concerned. This past game, I think when you felt like that it was a 13-0, you probably got away from it a little bit sooner than you wanted to, but you never could get any rhythm offensively. So if I can't get rhythm offensively now, I never have a chance to put any runs together. So now I only have the ball 3 plays and out. You're not going to run it.
Deuce, I think one of the things that people have been most confused about, though, is the offense. His struggle has just been the inability to kind of adjust to blitzes, pick them up, and avoid some of that trouble. With some of the stuff that you're seeing that isn't working, and what do they need to do to fix that kind of in a hurry? Because it seems like the one thing that can kind of torpedo them week after week after week.
Teams are going to – it's a copycat league. Teams are going to blitz you. I mean, Minnesota traditionally is not a blitz-heavy team. You're going to see 0 blitz this week. I mean, you're going to see it just because teams don't think you can stop it. You're going to see double A gap, and normally they're going to – all it is making offensive linemen commit, making the running back commit, and then once they see you commit, they're going to drop a defensive end out, and it's maybe weak pressure, maybe strong pressure, but they want to see how you react to those things. And so there's answers. I'll put it that way. There's answers to what they do offensively. Now, whether we see it or not, or whether they execute it, it's going to be – it goes back to the first question. It's an execution issue. You have quick game that you can go to, which I'm okay with quick game. But if a team is going to continue to blitz me, I want to hit them up top. So to hit them up top, you've got to be able to lock it up. And so whether that's 5-man protection or 7-man protection, doesn't really matter. But you have to make teams pay up top. And not necessarily, all right, you hit them quick game, you pick up 3 to 5 yards. They're going to do the same thing, maybe next series or again. They've got answers in there. They just got to get to the right answers and everybody be on the same page.
Is that maybe the one area where people maybe didn't appreciate Breeze enough? You take him out now, and you see just kind of how well he managed the game at the line of scrimmage, and that's been a little bit of a process for them replacing that.
100% agree. I mean, because the quarterback, offensive line, he sets it. Offensive line mics it. Quarterback comes up, he agrees with the offensive line. He can change it. And once he changes, it's his complete show. If he stays with it, then now everybody, the running back, tight ends, they have to all be in agreement. If something does happen, movement, after it's been mic'd, then it's on the quarterback. And I think that's probably the toughest part that, you've seen them struggle with, just because, well, I'm seeing one thing, and the communication issue didn't go to everybody, and that's probably been the toughest part for them to be able to kind of solve up until this point.
What do they need to do to make Alvin a bigger part of the solution? Because a lot of people are asking, is he hurt?
No.
Has he lost a step? And obviously we don't think that's true, especially he looked so good in training camp. But where is the Alvin Kamara production? Because even when it wasn't in the passing game, it was 6 rushing touchdowns against Minnesota, maybe the last time they played Minnesota. How do they unlock Alvin?
Well, one, I think, teams know that you're struggling offensively. So the one player that you want to take away is 41. So if I can take him away and I can flush to him, then offensively, where do you go? More pressure now goes to your quarterback. And so I think, teams understand and know that as well. And I think that's where you're going to have to kind of be creative. You may see a situation where Alvin is split out a little bit more, maybe not as a true receiver, but he's in the slot. And we saw some of that this past week. There was a wheel route that they tried to run this past week, and they just weren't able to connect. Now, there was pressure, but they weren't able to connect. I wouldn't be surprised if you maybe saw some situations like that. We know about the tip pass on I think that was second down, and then the third, and this was all in the red zone. That was a play that was going to go to Alvin, and then there's another play where it was probably a little hot on a option route on the sideline that he was running. You just got to connect. You got to connect on some of those throws, and so you want to get him involved. The touch limit ratio is probably 20 touches, and it's those will be situations where I tag a play, and it's specifically for him. Unless he's just tripled, hey guys, this ball is going to 41.
I'm going to ask you one that's kind of like the fans' hottest take right now. They seem to think that this offense can't work anymore, that it's outdated, it's no longer a modern NFL offense, there's not enough motion, there's not enough this. Do you agree with that? Do you think this offense, or do you think this offense is still effective and it just needs to be operated?
Yeah, I think it's from an operation standpoint. I mean, because the offense, it's the same thing that you've done, for the last 20-plus years as far as offensively. The thing that they've been able to do is it's evolved with the times. I mean, some of the things that we were doing, they may have similar concepts, but it's a little bit, there's tweaks to it. They, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, they stole Zorro from San Francisco. Yeah. That's a play that's a staple in San Francisco. We never ran that. Sean didn't even run it. And I know even how they run some of the slants or outside zone plays, they tweaked it probably 3 years ago on even how they run some of those plays. And so they are always looking at some of the success that either other NFL teams are having, or even some of the college teams. You're seeing them sprinkle some of the passing concepts in from that standpoint. So the base, it's always going to be personnel driven. It's always going to be shifts and motions. That's the basis of the offense. And the rest of it, you've got 5 or 6 consistent runs that they'll always carry just because of the run style. And then the passing concepts, I mean, you've got probably 5 or 6 of those, and then everything else is just a buildup of what works against certain coverages.
What's your most pessimistic take, though? What is something that you've now watched them 3 games and you're like, I don't know if they can do this? What's holding them back the most?
It's the mistakes. It's just the mental mistakes. It's really a mental mistake issue. It's a mental mistake issue that if they clean up, defensively you figure it will be strong. Special teams has to be strong. And this is just the way the team is built. From a defense, it has to be elite. Special teams has to be elite. And offense, you not to say that they're average group, you just have to be average. You just have to be average. And so I think that they can eventually get to elite, but you just be average. And this team will win ball games. I mean, but they're not built to struggle as they are offensively and then, get block field goals, miss extra, field goals. They're not built like that. And so I think that they turn it around. I think that they kind of do some soul searching. And, I think that they go on a little run. I don't know if it'll be like last time we were here in 17. I don't know if it'll be 8 straight games. But I think that they have enough talent where they can put, 2 to 3 to 4 wins together.
What, as a player being around the team, like when you are having those mental mistakes over and over and over, like what is the process? What does a coach do to fix that and make sure everybody kind of gets on point and they stop shooting themselves in the foot?
The real answer?
Yeah, the real answer.
Playing time. You lose it.
Yep.
And so I wouldn't be surprised if you start to see, hey, my numbers are going down as far as snaps. That gets your attention real quick. So I mean, you can talk about doing it over again in practice, or you can't jump off sides, or doing some different things like that. You start taking my playing time, that not only gets my attention, but that gets everybody else's attention across the board as far as the team is concerned.
Is the offensive line still special, or it has some growing to do?
It's some growing. They still have some growing to do. I think, just overall, you're going to be a work in progress. I don't know if they're a top 5 unit yet, but they have the potential to get back up to top 5.
Is it easier to be a top 5 unit when you have a guy like Breeze that's kind of making sure everybody's in the right spots and he's getting rid of the ball quickly? Like, did he make that group better?
He made it better because he lessened some of the things that you were going to see. From a standpoint of teams were not going to just be careless with some of the coverages that they were going to play, because he was going to recognize it and see it. And so Drew was one that was not going to stick with a bad play. Like right now, we've probably stuck with a bad play too many times. We've probably stuck with a bad play too many times of saying, I can let elite talent win instead of checking out of it, and maybe I don't have to worry about elite talent on the outside, because you got elite talent on the outside, but you still have to be able to protect inside, and the quarterback has to be able to see it just as the receivers do.
And you were at camp the whole time, watched every snap. You know this team probably better than anybody. Bringing in Adebo, getting him up to like a full slate of snaps, how much do you think that helps the defense? And do you think that helps maybe in the slot, getting Roby in there in a spot where maybe he can play a little bit better?
I think, from what they want to do, it'll still be a rotation. I mean, because you still will use Evans probably against teams that like to run out of certain personnel a lot more, and Adebo, a true passing, a true 11, a true receiver. You're going to probably go with him a little bit more. And so they didn't have to really worry about that flexibility when you had Chauncey, because you were good enough, or at least you felt comfortable enough with his coverage skills against a 11 guy. But you just I have a true safety, and now I can bring in a true nickel. And so I think it definitely helps them. I mean, and so you'll probably see them the first 2 weeks, you didn't really blitz a lot. Now, some of that was because of the offensive. Some of that was the teams that you'll face. But now, hey, you don't care. I'll play single high safety, and I'm going man, and up front go win.
You set yourself up for this one. How did losing CJ maybe change the defense and their identity?
Just from a personnel standpoint, you obviously lost the vocal. Because he was going to be vocal. You lost that, but from a personnel standpoint of how you covered, how you played some coverages, and how some packages that you used, maybe you lost that flexibility.
You shadow Justin Jefferson with Marshawn? Or no?
Yes.
Because Thielen's they didn't do it last week because both guys were kind of similar threats, but this Jefferson and Thielen are a little different, because that's a matchup I want to watch.
Yeah, no, it may not be the complete game. I think because, you go back to the Tampa game, they didn't do it with Marshawn. They didn't do it with Marshawn and Mike Evans early on.
Yeah.
But after 2 or 3 catches, they did, just because they saw that they would put him in the slot, and they would just find that advantage. But, for the Saints, I think that they do it this game, and they like the matchups that they have also.
And do they do it again? Is London the elixir again? Or are you worried that they might not have their solution?
No, I think that this will. The one thing about London, and the guys have talked about it, where are you going? You don't. I mean, yeah, you can go out to dinner, you can go to eat, but you're at the hotel, and they're around each other. So for a player to put on WhatsApp or whatever they're using, you know, as far as communication, we're gonna grab lunch, we're gonna grab dinner, and then we're gonna catch another 15, 20 minutes of film. How am I gonna tell, you know, just from the back standpoint, how am I gonna tell Mark no? He's gonna, man, where you at? You know, and so that's the toughest. I'm not saying it's the toughest part, but that's the part that if you're back at home, you can't do that. You aren't going to do it just because guys are, you know, they're with their family. And some of them have their family here, but it's like, we're going to go watch film. What else are you doing? And so I think that's probably the one part of your problems that you have. That's probably the best part of it. You're going to be together, and it's almost going to be forced because you don't have anywhere. Where are you going?
That's how we got you here. Actually, Mark just texted. Mark wants you to come watch film with him after this.
Yeah. Do you think they got the pieces in the coaching staff to turn this around and maybe get on the other side of some of the stuff that's been going on and get on that run like they got on in maybe not 17, but at least rip off a few here in the next 5?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think so. From a pieces standpoint, you like the pieces. The pieces, like I said, it's execution. You got the pieces. You got the staff. That's not the worry. I mean, it's a pure execution at this point.
That's all we got. We appreciate you coming on.
No problem. All right.
And we'll have all your coverage throughout the week as this quarterback situation unfolds. One thing we would be remiss not to point out, yesterday James Hurst, talking about Jameis Winston playing through his injury, actually mentioned that they view him as a warrior and they view it as something that galvanizes the team. That's something that probably a lot of us overlook as we nitpick the play and try to figure out what's wrong with the offense. Him being out there playing through this injury, leading them on the comeback against Atlanta after breaking his back, these things should not be overlooked and lost within the storm.
We were on opposite sides of that scrum, and we both took note of it and mentioned to each other afterward. It's like, if they just won one more game, Jameis would be getting the hero treatment. Like, what a warrior he is, and he deserves that. And if he is held back, when he didn't practice Wednesday, he made it clear that was against his wishes. He doesn't care if he's 60%, if he's 40%. He wants to go out there and try to win and try to compete. These are the things we've always lauded Drew Brees for. Most people get lauded for. The team has to decide, well, will that help the team or hurt the team? But Jameis is doing everything he can to be out there.
No question about it. We'll have all your coverage throughout the week. Keep it locked to NewOrleans.Football.
We in the dome right now, we in the zone right now. Put your hands in the air, cause it's on right now. Yeah, we back up in this thing and we coming for the crown. They tripping Kev on the mic.
It's about to go down.
We in the dome right now, we in the zone right now. Put your hands in the air, cause it's on right now. Yeah, we back up in this thing and we coming for the crown. They tripping Kev on the mic.
It's about to go down.